I'm going to do an actual play of Dragonbane solo for the channel. And in this video, I'm going to go over all the prep work and talk about the procedures I'm going to be using to play my game. So let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. In this video series, we're going to do an actual play of Dragonbane solo. This first video is going to be talking about all the prep work I did before I do the actual play. So I printed out a few documents. I've got the current version of the solo rules for Dragonbane from Free League Publishing. If you're a backer of Dragonbane, you would have already been sent this PDF. If you're not a backer, there's no way to get a copy of this yet, but it will be available in the box set when it is released for retail. I also printed out the new combat and damage section of the Dragonbane rules that were sent out. I didn't print out the whole book. I didn't think it was necessary to print out the whole book because there's certain chapters I'm not using magic. Character creation, I just used it as a PDF. And the monster section, I'm still just going to use my printed copy from the original beta that I've done reviews on this printed copy. Because nothing's really changed that much with the monsters. And I'm just no reason to reprint information that's already available in another form. So those are the main documents I printed. I'm going to be using from Free League. My goal for this video series is to do everything I can to stay within the solo rules provided. So I'm bringing very little in from the outside. We are going to be using the oracle that's provided on the fortune chart and all these additional information. We're going to use everything from here. Even the adventure is coming from these solo rules. The character sheet and created a character just using the rules that are in the rule book. Also incorporating the new solo character rules. I gave my PC army of 1. I didn't do anything different with character creation. I rolled my dice. I just didn't roll in order. I rolled all my dice and then I assigned the numbers accordingly. One of the things that in Dragonbane, when you're creating a character, is you are going to have a specific attribute that your character needs to be proficient in. And mine for the character I created is agility. And I luckily rolled an 18. So I gave max scores in agility. So I had assigned the numbers afterwards. I think for solo play that is helpful so that you can actually make a character that can do stuff. If I would have rolled a bad agility score, my PC wouldn't have had a chance. So anyways, followed all the rules that are in the rule book for creating my character. Let's talk about some of the other things I'll be incorporating into this solo game. First thing I'm going to talk about is my journal. This is the journal I'm going to be using for the 2023-2024 season of Solitary RPG. I want to try to keep all of my notes from my games and everything in one journal. Typically I have like 5 or 6 different journals and I got information all over the place, trying to focus everything down into one. It's like a $20 journal, but I really like this company. I have a lot of their other journals. This one particular has lined paper, dotted paper, and blank paper. So it gives me a lot of different types of paper to use and just something I'm doing. So what we're going to do is we are going to christen this new journal for the 2023-2024 season of Solitary RPG with a Solitary RPG sticker as soon as I can peel it off. And we will put that right here, make it official. So, there's my official stamp. But that's my journal. We're going to come back to this in a little bit because I have some notes that I've already taken from some playtest sessions that I did. And I've got all my procedures listed out. And that's one of the important things we're going to talk about. The other thing I'm going to bring in is I'm going to try my best to do this play on words, Dungerator. The Dungerator. So this is a Kickstarter I backed. I got Series 1 and Series 2 cards, and these are a deck of 52 cards that basically give you dungeons like this that you can put into your game. And the reason I really like these cards and I want to use them is we're going to be going into the breach. You know, that we're sticking with the information in the solo rules. So we're diving into the breach, which is just kind of a dungeon dive. And I just wanted to use these cards because they're really cool. I like the art that's on them. In these cards, you're going to have entrances that your PCs can come in. You're going to have treasure rooms in here, and you're going to have stairways. So these cards I'm leaving out of the game. I'm only going to use the entrance, one of the entrances, but the main part of the cards that I'll be using are here. And these are all the different dungeon rooms, and when we get into the procedures, you'll have a better understanding of how I'm going to use them. But these are just really cool cards with art. When it's got an X on the back, that means that's a dead end. Obviously, you can see that. You can always put a secret door in there or something if you wanted to. It's your game. Do what you want. And then the other side, there's still a path, and the arrow indicates the direction that you're going. So yeah, these are what I'm going to use. These are just really cool cards. They have great art. And I have the digital product as well for these. So this gives me something I can actually put on screen so you can see what I'm seeing. Even though I can flash the card in my computer, I can just put it down in the lower corner so you can actually see it while we're going through it. So these are going to be my waypoints. According to the rules, you have so many waypoints. These are going to be my waypoints. So each card will just be a waypoint. And that's how these are going to be incorporated into the game. The last thing we're going to incorporate is Bell Whispers, but the only thing we're going to be using from Bell Whispers is going to be table 9, which is for the doors, because on these cards there's doors, and there's nothing really in Dragonbane on how to deal with doors, and I want to have a process in place for when I find a door. How am I going to handle that? Am I going to just open the door and keep moving through it, or do I want to see if the door's trapped, locked, whatever? So I'm just going to use this simple chart here from Bell Whispers for handling doors. And that's it. That's everything. Normally, when I play solo, I incorporate a lot of different stuff. I'm trying not to do that here. What I want is for you to experience kind of playing the solo rules as written. I feel the two things that I'm adding, this is just being added for visual appeal for video purposes, and Bell Whispers is just being added because the cards have doors on them, and I need to be able to balance those out. So that's it for there. Now let's talk about procedures. When I approach a game for solo play, I'm going to just throw my PC into situations and see how the rules work with the tools that I have, and if I need to add anything before I invest into a big adventure. Did some sample combats. I did some sample encounter stuff, like going through the breach, and I just kind of write myself a bunch of notes about the threat clock and about doors and companions and just different things that came up during game sessions. So that's all what I've done so far. I probably played the game 3 times solo. I did my backstory on Bastine. So basically, I found that the Hunter class is probably going to be the best for running a single character. And the reason for that is you have this ability called Companion. And what that basically gives you is the ability to take a non-monster animal that's in your area, and now you become connected to that animal, and they can help you with your adventure. For solo play, and based on how the rules worked, I felt that was a really good way of exploring the game and having some fun with it. So that is why I'm going with the Hunter for the profession. And it gave me some really cool skills and abilities. I'm also just running a human. I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. And human also has the adaptive ability, which basically when you push a roll, you can choose a different attribute as long as you narratively can explain why you're using a different attribute instead of the main attribute which you're pushing. It's just kind of a cool little thing. And I also took Army of One, which costs no willpower, which basically I can get 2 initiative cards, which is actually kind of a good thing in solo play because some of the things I learned during playtesting, yeah, you want to make sure you have the option to go first so that you can hold your actions, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So anyways, pretty simple stuff, but yeah, went with the hunter for the profession because of the companion rule, and I came up with some cool procedures for using the companion to help with gameplay. Yeah, so what Bastien is he lives in Outskirt. He is a hunter, so he takes people out hunting. He also goes out hunting. His family owns the local butcher shop. They sell meat in Outskirt. Pretty simple stuff, but he wants to be an adventurer, going very trope with my story thread. He wants to be an adventurer. He wants to join the Adventurers Guild. In order for him to join the Adventurer Guild, he has to go into the breach and find 3 pieces of iron shard so that he can build his World Breaker reforged weapon. So that's how you enter into the Adventurers Guild in Outskirt, is you have to make your own weapon. And since he has hunting skills and is a butcher, I want his weapon to be a pair of meat cleavers. I just thought that'd be kind of cool. That's what he wants to build. So he has to get 3 pieces of iron shard. So we're basically going into the breach looking for iron shard. Pretty straightforward stuff. Everything else here is just information about developing characters. So let's get into procedures. One of the things that's important when you're playing a role-playing game is you've got to come up with procedures. Like, how are you going to handle basic stuff? This isn't procedures about how to interact with NPCs. This isn't procedures about creating your environment and your excitement. This is procedures about, when I come to a door, how am I going to handle that door? What are going to be my pass-fail results? And how am I going to handle that? How am I going to handle the waypoints? How am I going to handle the threat clock? Combat, pretty intense stuff on combat. Scavenging, searching, and companions. Those are the procedures I've came up with. So let's talk about it. So the combat is probably the most important thing. And I had to make some changes to the core rules to work with combat. First of all, when we are going into combat, we're going to use the fortune chart to help better describe who we're combating. So with the fortune chart, obviously it's an oracle, but you have some characteristics, mainly how is the encounter reacting to us, because they could be friendly, they could be open, or they could be flat out hostile. So we're going to use this chart to identify our combat or an encounter and see how they're reacting, their quality, just some basic narrative information. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to be really focusing on. And then the second thing, avoid combat. I have done some just basic play testing with my PC just going against like a goblin warrior and just doing a head-to-head clash of combat, and you can die quickly. This is not like, they did not rebalance the encounters for one PC. Your encounters in the rule book and they don't talk about it in the solo rules. When you have an encounter, you got to think about it. And their weapons, like a little goblin warrior with a spear was doing 2d8 damage and just took my PC out. So it's important to try to avoid combat. You can't just be a single character running through the breach killing everything. You're just not going to last that long. So you want to use sneaking abilities and you want to do things like that. So just be mindful of it. But if you can avoid it, avoid it. Initiative. First round of combat, the initiative's immediately going to go to the PC. I just think that's important. Then after the first round of combat, the PC and the encounters will start rolling. I'm just going to be rolling D10s. I don't have the cards. I have cards for the game systems, but just as easily just roll d10s. Whoever rolls the lowest gets to go first. But I'm going to have army of 1, so I will have the opportunity to roll 2 d10s and hopefully get a lower score than the encounter. But it's important though to, like, if you go first, it's not a hack and slash. It's going to be basically holding your action back so that you can respond to the encounter attacking you, and you can dodge or parry out of the way. And then that might be a waste of your turn, but it's survival. Your PC is going to be able to survive. So you got to be a little bit more defensive. Going first gives you that opportunity to hold back your action and do it. And then maybe as you might get a few, like if the encounter misses and you get a few hits in, maybe you can reduce their HP and then go in for that final attack. But you've got to play smart, and that initiative is important. Plus, also some of the encounters are going to be treated as NPCs, and this NPC attack table is really cool because not everything is going to be an immediate attack, and some of the attacks are going to be a lot more aggressive. So this is neat for NPCs, and some of the monsters like goblins and orcs, and I believe skeletons, are treated as NPCs. But if you run into any of the other encounters, they're going to be treated, you're going to use the monster attack table that's listed in the book for those monsters, which we've talked about on the channel, which I think is going to make this game a lot better for solo play, because it's not going to be the same, I hit you, you hit me, I hit you. So this is kind of cool, but I really don't want to go up against a minotaur. That's, again, there's some big creatures in here you're going to want to try to avoid as best as possible. So that's one other thing we're going to be doing with the NPC attack table. And then damage. Anytime I damage an encounter, I'm going to ask the fortune chart if the encounter runs off. And if you really stop and think about monsters in any situation, or nature, creatures in nature that we come in contact with, they're more scared of us than we are of them for the most part, because they're trying to survive just like we are. So depending on what I'm encountering, if I do some damage to it, I'm going to see if it runs off, just to give me an opportunity to survive. And it's just going to be using the D6 Oracle on the fortune chart. Special attacks. In the combat rules, there's special attacks like find the weak point, grappling, things like that. These can come in real handy. Just don't forget to use them. I always do. But you may be rolling at a Bane to use these abilities, but they can come in handy. And then, like I said, holding your action is going to be a big part of this, because you want to be able to defend. Monsters with mobility. This is just a special rule that you have to remember. If a monster has mobility, they can dodge and parry your attacks just like you can. So it's important just to remember these little rules. And then the other thing I made changes with are the treasure results. So I am not printing out all the treasure cards to pull cards. I just simply went through the gear section of the rule book, picked the categories that I thought would be fitting for an adventure in the Breach, and I'll just have my PC roll on them. The only ones that I've made notes here for are ranged weapons and melee weapons. Whatever the encounter has, like if I'm fighting a goblin or an orc and they have a weapon, that's the only weapon I can find. I'm not going to be able to go finding other weapons. I'm just going to say whatever they're using is what I'm going to find. But I made a little D10 chart that I can just roll on and then go into the rules and just pull from that. Just rolling some random dice. Nothing too exciting. But this is kind of how I'm going to be dealing with combat. Going to identify the inhabitant is what the table is called, the inhabitant table. And just start rolling on the fortune chart to give them some descriptive information. I'm going to try to avoid combat as best I can, but if I can't avoid it and it's going to happen, PC goes first. Army of 1 will let me roll 2 d10s during the additional rounds of combat, so that I can try to go first. Really going to be focusing on holding back my action so I can defend and parry special attacks, and really try to get some damage in on the encounter. And then if I damage them, going to be asking the fortune chart if they run off. Simple stuff. Doors. So when I pull a card and it has a door on it, I've got to deal with that door. So what I'm going to do is when there's a doors, there's going to have to be an awareness check, pass or fail. If I pass the awareness check, I'm going to notice if there's any traps or anything, and I'm going to be successful at deciding what I'm going to do with that door. I'm going to use Bell Whispers, and I'm going to use the chart for doors, which I kind of wrote out here. I'm going to roll a d12, 1 through 3. The door is trapped or it's hidden. 4 through 7, it's locked or shut. It's going to require a strength check. 8, 10, it's closed. 11, 12, it's open. So I'm just going to roll on that. If I fail the awareness check and I go through the door and I roll trapped, the trap is sprung, and then I'm just going to refer to the chart in the rules for traps and the damage that it's going to be doing. If it's locked or stuck, I got to make a strength check. But if I do have to make a strength check to get through the door and it's going to make noise, if there's an encounter on the other side, they have surprise on me, and then I will lose that first round of initiative. So that's how doors are going to work. The waypoints, pretty straightforward. So this is a waypoint. Coming through here, dealing with this, and then going out there. So let's say this is our current waypoint. It only has one way out. What we're going to do is we're just going to flip the next card. And if the next card is a dead end and it ends the waypoint and there's no other place for me to go, I'm just going to use the other side so that the adventure can keep going. And that's all I'm going to be doing with flipping the cards. And then I'm using the visual information on the cards to help me. And then once I have my card and I have a visual, then I'm just going to start rolling on these tables in the Dragonbane rules for the exploration, about the location details. If I have any kind of a danger and there's an inhabitant, I will roll on this inhabitant chart, which this inhabitant chart can get pretty brutal. If you roll a 20, you get a demon. If you roll a 1, you get a dragon. One PC is not taking care of those, so you may want to do some narrative stuff on those. But for the most part, a lot of these other ones are pretty doable. You can pretty much, you might be able to get around them with a persuasion roll or just a sneak roll and get past them. Some you may just have to encounter. But yeah, so once I flip the card and I have my visual, taking the stuff I'm rolling on the charts, I will narratively come up with what's in that area and move forward with it. So that's how I'm handling the waypoints. Pretty straightforward. It's just flip a card, go. Flip a card, go. Made a note here about seeing companion. Let's jump to that first. So the companion, I'm going to have a rat. I've already decided what my companion's going to be. I've got the stats. There wasn't stats for a rat, but I took the stats for a cat and just made it my rat. Cat, rat. That sounds like fun. But anyways, anytime they are going ahead of my PC, they're always going to be going ahead. So when we flip a new room, if there's not a door that we have to go through, the companion will be going through, making an awareness check, just giving my PC advantage if there is any kind of a encounter in there or something, like giving them heads up. Pretty simple stuff, and they're just going to roll awareness. If they pass, they will have knowledge of any kind of encounter and how to deal with it, because they may want to go a different direction if they're allowed to. If they fail, they're just going in blind and have to deal with whatever they got. Companions can help in the attack. You just got to remember to spend power points. And again, based on the adventure that we're going to be going through, the companion's only supposed to last a shift, which is like 6 hours. I'm just changing that a little bit and just saying the companion's going to stay with me the entire adventure, because there's a narrative thread between the companion and what's going on. So there's that. So that's how the companion's going to be used. So the threat clock is a really cool device just to kind of keep some pressure on your PC and just keep something kind of in the background always on your PC's mind or on your mind about what could potentially happen. So we've talked about the threat clock is just simply whenever you delay or you have failures in your rolls, things like that, you advance the threat clock, and starts out on a D6 at a 1 Every one of those that takes place just moves it forward. You can advance it twice by rolling a demon on any kind of a check. So you got to be careful about that. That's how it advances. So any kind of setbacks, delays, when you're moving slowly by searching or resting or sneaking, that's going to advance your clock. But before we start the game, what we want to do is we want to roll on what our threat is. And this is something that we're going to be able to use narratively throughout our solo game, because this is the whatever's seeking us. And these are just some really cool narrative information that you can incorporate, so that way when you do have your final threat, maybe you just pick that threat instead of rolling on a chart, because throughout the adventure, the words that you're pulling from and the things that were coming up are just kind of leading towards a certain kind of encounter. Whatever, it's up to you, but it's just more narrative information you can use. But once you reach 6, then you encounter your big bad threat, and that's how we're using the threat clock. Scavenging and searching. So these are two different activities that your PC can do. Scavenging is no skill roll. You're just kind of looking around as you're moving through, maybe tossing a pile of clothes off to the side. You're kicking them over and seeing if there's something underneath. Looking on a table, looking on a chair, whatever. And that's why I like these cards, because they give me some narrative visual cues that I can use to say, well, I'm looking on the table to see if there's anything left behind. Things like that. Then what I did is I made some changes to the search table. So for interesting items, which is here, when you find an interesting item, it was a D4 roll and you found these random things. I made it a D6 roll, and on a 5 or 6, he finds an iron shard. He finds a piece that he's looking for. So that's how the scavenging is going to go. And on 10, same thing. Found a piece of an iron shard and also a treasure card. So that's what we're going to be using this for, is finding iron shards so he can build his weapons. And the scavenging results, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be a piece of iron shard. 10 giving him another treasure card. 6, I just added a 5, 6 to this for interesting item. And on a 5, 6, he gets an iron shard. Pretty simple stuff. Same thing for the searching rules. I just made 6 through 10 with the hidden treasures. Yeah, you get a treasure, but you also get a piece of the iron shard. Hidden vault is you get 2 pieces of the iron shard and a treasure. That's all. Made some simple changes to those. Searching, though, does advance the threat clock, because that is taking time to search, and you're actually searching. So that's something you have to think about with searching, and go with that. And then, you got to make a spots hidden roll, and then you go through the whole rules as written. The only other thing I had to change here was secret path. So secret path diverts to D4 new pathways. I just said it opened up a new waypoint, so you just flip a new card and it's just a secret door that takes you down another path, but it's a dead end. So if you do find it, you're immediately it's a secret door and you go to a dead end. That's how I'm handling that. So that's everything I put together for playing Dragonbane solo. The next video, we're just going to sit down and start playing. I'm going to keep the videos at about 30 minutes. So I don't know how many videos this is going to be, but I don't see it being very many. I just want to give the viewers an understanding of how the solo rules for Dragonbane work. The only things I'm adding, like I said, have to deal with the visual aspects for doing videos with it. And we're going to do everything we can to stay within the rules and just have some fun. Just kind of show you how I go about approaching solo games. And this is the first step, going through the rules, understanding the rules, putting together some procedures for some things that may come up during gameplay that I noticed during testing, and then we'll start playing. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching.